come to associate this taste with a productive day at work and on the water. If you guys want to try a bag, go to outdoorsmancoffee.com, use code ACKA20 to save 20% on your next order.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Behind the Reel podcast. Shout out to Outdoorsman Coffee Company. They make some good stuff, and they support this channel. They support grassroots kayak fishing, and heck yeah. So thank you guys for tuning in. This is episode 52, and we are doing a little debate, if you will, with Mr. Levi Snow. He has been on the show before to talk about club that he runs out of southeast Kansas called the Columbus Bass Club, I believe. He can correct me on that if I'm wrong. But if you guys haven't checked out that episode before, you can go back, check out that podcast playlist, and you can check that out as soon as you're done here. I've had over 50 of these things now, so plenty of content for you guys to enjoy when you are on the road. Not watch, of course, just got to listen. But plenty of entertainment there. Lots of people from around the state and around the country that are entertaining, or maybe they're just hammers. We've got a lot of hammers on the show for sure. I wouldn't consider myself one of them, but we're going to talk about electronics versus no electronics. Levi has some pretty strong stance on the no electronics approach, or at least a limited electronics. And out of the club that he runs, they only allow down imaging and traditional 2D sonar. They do not allow side imaging or any forward-facing sonar. And so that is kind of where they have drawn the line in the world of electronics and tournament fishing. So just kind of a little bit of a brief intro. We'll go ahead and bring him on. He can introduce himself. I would, however, like to just make it clear that this is going to be a civil conversation. You know, these sort of debates can get heated on social media, and we're not going to do that. So what we're going to do here today is we're going to have an open dialogue, and I want to hear what is behind the reasonings, why he has done what he's done. And, he probably wants to hear the same from me. So we're going to go ahead and do that. If you guys have any comments or questions, would love to hear, what you guys think over there in the comment section. Keep it respectful, please, or it just may not make it on the screen. So, guys, again, we are all in this together. We are bass fishermen. We're tournament anglers. A lot of us are from the same part of the state or the same state. And, it'd be much better if we could figure out how to work together to make this thing even better. So just keep that in mind. Appreciate you guys already over there in the comment section. Got our boy Casual Bass Guy over there. And I know he's got some YouTube content that he just posted up. And I believe he's got some more on the way. So check him out if you haven't already. And boy, Organic Derek over here. What's up, man? All right, guys. Go ahead. Post your comments over there, I guess, maybe. I don't know on your screen if it looks different. But post it over there in the live comment section there, and we will get to them just as quick as we can. I'm going to go ahead and bring Levi on. What's up, Levi?
All right, there I am. All right, how's everybody doing today? I'm doing pretty good. It's cooled off a little bit, so.
Yeah, it is nice and cool here in the garage. I got a couple window units blown, so I wasn't trying to stick it out in the stuffy, hot garage. So luckily, I got my ACs working here.
Yeah, the garage might be a little hot. I'd be outside ain't too bad.
Yeah, well, having the door open might help a little bit. But if you want to give maybe just a brief introduction about yourself and about maybe the club and your experiences tournament fishing, you can start there.
Okay. Well, I have been fishing ever since. I got deep into fishing when I was about probably 12 or so. I've done it a lot since I was a little kid. I grew up walking the strip pits here. That is how I grew up fishing, just walking the banks. And then I got a little older, and I got a little scamp is what I fished out of to start with. I wish we had kayaks back then. That would have made life a lot easier. They're a lot easier to tote around than a scamp is. But scamps and john boats is kind of what I grew up in. And then I turned 16 and I was able to get a job, and I went out and got my own bass boat. And ever since, I've kind of been fishing lakes since then out of a bass boat, and kind of dealing with the tournament scenes and kind of watched everything evolve from what it was then. That was really before there was any electronics. When did side imaging took off in the 2010 era, right around there. 2012 is kind of when side imaging kind of took off. But it still wasn't real big until, here recently, probably about 10 years, which had about 2012, 10 years ago. And now really here, it's really when things took off was with the front-facing sonar. Not really with live scope, but kind of when the Rants jumped on board with the front-facing sonar with their active target. That's just last year, I think kind of around COVID era, right in there 2 years ago. That's when the front-facing sonar craze kind of went wild there. I'm not sure when 360 took off, but just kind of the past couple of years, and I've seen that on the BFL scene as well. Just everything's grown, and the way it's growing is there's a lot of, you can see it, the boats are becoming $100,000, and there used to be maybe 5 or 10% of the field in the BFL was full of those, and now it's just about, I would say, 60 to 70% of the field is with those kind of boats. But your boat don't really help you catch fish. It don't matter how big and fast your boat is, it ain't going to help you catch those fish. Same way with your rods and reels and tackle. But once you start looking at front-facing sonar and 360, and another one is spot lock that has not been mentioned. I see a lot of debates on electronics, and spot lock is one of them that I want to touch base on as well. That's a very big one. Boat control used to kind of be something that people really had to know how to do. If you're offshore fishing out there in 20-mile-an-hour wind, you really had to know how to keep your boat stable and throw an anchor out, one of the two.
Sure. Yeah.
I fished Toyota Series, and also I fished one Bassmaster Open. That one did not go so well. That one, I had a bad first day and one bad day, and Bassmaster Open put you way behind. So.
Yeah. Was that this year?
That was last year, and I was gonna fish all of them, and then I had to have the brain surgery last year. So not quite brain surgery, but they had to cut the back of my head open back here. So.
Oh wow.
Bass was real nice on that. Yeah, and they let me cancel the season. They let me have my deposits back on that.
Nice. Okay. Alrighty. And so you, even though, so back then, I guess that maybe is a good segue into this. So when you were, dedicating all that money, right, and all the time away from making money, the time away from work and, family and all that, by dedicating your time to fishing the opens, did you have the same feelings, with the technology? I mean, what were you?
Yes,
what were you
yes. I felt this way. I felt this way way before that. I really noticed it. It would have been, I guess it would have been last year. After the opens is really when I noticed it. I kind of noticed it in the opens down there at Pickwick. It was at Pickwick where the first one was, but the first one on Lewis Smith was canceled. So the first one was Pickwick, and I noticed all the people offshore, and I was kind of seeing they would just put their boat and they were fishing, just way offshore out in the middle of Pickwick out there, which is a lot of ledges and a lot of stuff. And it wasn't just one or two anglers. It was probably 60 or 70% of the field was offshore out there. And you would see them, and they were just casting. They weren't moving with the spot block. They were just sitting right where they needed to be, and they were just casting directly to their targets. And I didn't have front-facing sonar at that time yet, and that's kind of what I was paying attention to. And I seen how they was out there, and I was like, they were just really focused in on what they were fishing. And I was like, because I'd seen a lot of debates on the internet, and people said you still got to catch the fish, and it's still blurry, and you can't actually see the structure. And so I was kind of leery about getting the front-facing sonar. And then over the winter, I bought the front-facing sonar, and actually the first time I had it out, it was it took me about an hour, 2 hours to really get figured out how to see my bait out there, I installed everything myself. get the right angle of the transducer on the active target. I ended up getting a Lowrance active target, and I got the HDS 16 carbon to put it on. I wanted a big enough screen to see everything. Then once I got it all figured out and I could see my bait, I actually started catching fish the first time out with it with a jerk bait. I was throwing to them and watching them eat the bait. And that was just my first time ever actually using the front-facing sonar. And I was like, oh, okay, wow, this is a lot simpler than what a lot of people put it at, because they said, you still got to catch the fish, which that was in a strip pit, so it's a little bit easier to actually locate the fish. But once you locate the fish, it is a lot simpler to catch them. It don't always work that easy. You still got to kind of figure them out what season it is. But like I said, my first time out with it, I was catching fish looking at them. It really surprised me, and I was like, okay. And I've went this long without it now, because a lot of people were saying it didn't help. So that's just the front-facing sonar. Once you go ahead.
I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear that, somebody who is advocating for banning electronics or banning forward-facing sonar actually has it on his boat. And not only do you have active target, but you have the biggest screen you could possibly use active target with.
Yes. See, I went and I got it because it's kind of hard to do anything and talk trash on something when you actually don't know what it does. There is a lot of people out there that will say, and then they were saying, oh, well, you don't have it, you've never used it, you don't know what you're talking about. But I do know what I'm talking about because I do own it. And that is where if you're going to try to compete with them, you got to have it.
So is that why you bought it? You bought it because you felt like you had to have it to compete?
Yes, exactly. You have to have it. You ain't got front-facing sonar. I mean, it depends on what time of year it is. If you're out in an early spring event, or even right now in the summer event, if you ain't got it, you're going to get left behind. That's just the bottom line. Depends on where you're at. I mean, if you're on a river, most likely not. But if you're here, say, in the Midwest, I don't know how a lot of the Kansas lakes are, but if you're on Table Rock, you're on Stockton, especially Lake of the Ozarks or Grand Lake, when they're out in brush piles, I don't know if you have ever used the front-facing sonar or not, how familiar you are with it, but you just pull up there and you get spot locked. You find your brush piles with your side imaging, you go around, you pull up with them, you drop your front-facing sonar, you look directly at it, and actually now with Hummingbird's new release, you can actually keep your spot lock, and your spot lock will keep you in that place, and your front-facing sonar will keep you looking directly at that structure. And for anybody out there that does not have front-facing sonar, you can actually see the structure. And then when you're let's say you're bringing a jig over it, and you bring it into the brush pile or up over the brush pile, you can actually watch the fish come out of the brush pile. Literally watch. It's a sonar. It's not really a picture, but it's a sonar. You can actually watch them eat your lure. And you can see it all in real time. It actually happens just like that.
Yeah. If you want to buy one, you can get one at Russell Marine Products.
Yes, if you want, you can get one there. Now, that leads us into right there, me talking about how easy it is. I want to ask some questions about, kind of goes back to the start of bass tournaments. I don't know if there's anybody old enough to ever really remember when they started or why some of the first rules were implemented. But one of them that I want to touch base on there, and I kind of want to go back and forth throughout the video here on that, is live bait. That is the start of everything. Why was live bait ever banned from bass tournaments? Does anybody know in the comments? I've asked this question a lot, and I don't really get a very good answer out of it.
I don't know. I mean, who are you asking? Are you asking?
I mean, I'm asking everybody. I can give my opinion on why it was. I'll give my opinion on why I think live bait was banned was because they thought it was too easy. That is why they banned that.
Sure. I could see that. Now, when was that?
I don't know. I'm not sure when was all that implemented. I've never talked to anybody too deep into that.
Was live bait ever legal in the bass?
I don't know. I don't know if it started off being legal or if they just put it in there, or why was it ever made illegal? And my guess was at some point, if it wasn't put in there to start with, is because it was too easy. Would be my guess. With live bait, you still got to find the fish. If you go out and you're in an area with no fish, you're still not going to catch nothing with live bait.
Right.
It don't matter what you throw out. If there's fish there, you're not going to catch it. And then that kind of will lead me into the next. Oh, go ahead. You got some more on that.
Well, on the live bait thing, I would imagine, and I guess it doesn't really help our conversation if we don't know if it was ever legal. But I guess if it was ever legal and they banned it, it probably happened a very long time ago. I would imagine before electronics. I mean, for a lot of years, electronics fishing, marine electronics in the fishing industry, anyways. We're almost at like a standstill. I mean, for probably 20 years, we really didn't see huge advancements. I mean, from the time that we had, paper graphs to the time that we had side imaging, there was a lot of years between there, right? And so you're not getting much on these new electronics in terms of traditional sonar and down imaging that you weren't able to get back in the 70s with a paper graph. We're basically seeing the same exact image that my grandpa was seeing, in the 60s and the 70s on his paper graph. So there was a very long period of time where the technology wasn't there. So yeah, I mean, if live bait was seen as an advantage, technology hasn't ever had that huge push until just now for them to even maybe consider whether this or that shouldn't be, eligible or, shouldn't be allowed. So, I mean, I would say, yeah, if it was ever allowed, and maybe somebody over here, I don't know. Organic says because it takes no skill, he says. Okay, here's an and that's not true because I mean, no offense to organic, but I mean you still got to find them because just like you said earlier, you're not going to catch fish in an area that they're not in, right? So there's still some sort of skill involved.
Like with electronics, if you go there and there's no fish there with electronics, if you can't find them, it's the same exact point there.
But I will give it to you that at least they're not there and you can get out.
Yes, that is what a good angler knows. He gets there, but that also goes back to the electronics. If you have the electronics, you can see they're not there and you can leave if you know how to correctly read those electronics.
Danny says lure companies can't make money on live bait. That's interesting.
But a live bait company can. Tackle shops can also make money. Let's say I wanted to start a traveling live bait company. I could travel around with a tour and I could make a killing.
Well, sure, but
you could still make money.
But you're also not throwing millions of dollars at the tournament scene. So is that what he's getting at? Is that what he's getting at? That maybe the companies that we're helping push the tournament scene had a hand in that financially, and maybe there was something there. We don't know. I guess that's something
that goes to another point of mine, and that I'm going to touch here is it's becoming about sponsors and money, and it's not becoming about who is the best anglers on the tour or in the tournament scene. It is all about money, and he's becoming an elite sport, if that makes any sense. Just kind of like NASCAR. They're just in it, and they care about the sponsors. It ain't like any other professional sports where it's about who is the best athlete at that position or doing that.
I think the last part of what you said, I can't agree with that, because if everybody has forward-facing sonar, if everybody's allowed to have the same technology, then you just have to use your resources the best, and the best angler is going to figure out how to do that. I mean, just like you said, you figured it out in a couple hours. These guys that are fishing 300 plus days a year, there's no reason for them not to be able to pick it up if they want to. And there are guys out there that don't.
Oh, yes.
They still do well. But
yes, I'm talking like qualifying levels. You got to be able to qualify to get to that point. Once you're at the elite tour, that is a whole different story there. But it's for the lower guys. And just like that, I'm going to get into all that kind of later about the cost of everything and everything. That there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened today that kind of fits that theory exactly to the point.
Okay,
there's a lot more to it than just.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. You can go ahead.
Before we get too far, I'm gonna go back up here. Casual Bass Guy says, "Are you for creating a completely new division for guys to be in competitive tournaments without forward-facing sonar and side scan? Or are you more for the entire sport to ban those things for everyone?
Well, it would actually benefit everybody if there was like 2 separate tours. That would be great. But when you look at, since he asked that question, let's look at any other actual professional sports here. Let's take the PGA, for example. How long has rangefinders been available to the PGA Tour, but they cannot use a rangefinder out on the golf course or in a tournament? How long has that been available to a PGA golfer? Does anybody know that question?
I have no idea.
I've seen that. I think it was Brandon Vladimir had a video and he was talking about that, and he said that it's not the world's job or the organization's job to make it a level playing field for everybody out there. And actually, if you look at any other professional sport, that is exactly what that organization has done, is they have created a level playing field to see who is the best at doing what they do. Just like in football, it's who is the best football player. Baseball, it's who is the best baseball player. It's not about who can use the best technology. You take the Houston Astros, for example, they took advantage of the technology and they stole signs to win the World Series. That was deemed illegal, even though everybody else can do it. It's considered wrong and too easy. Even though the technology is there to do so, they don't allow that.
I think that, they really would have had to put a cap on it much sooner than now for
yes,
this.
They should have done it a lot sooner than what it has came.
So when it was okay to run flashers, when it was okay to run paper graphs, when it was okay to run down imaging, when that stuff was allowed, how do you allow down imaging but you don't allow side imaging? Or, and I guess you're doing that. So that's a great question for you. Like, what is and I guess it makes more sense because you guys are strictly fishing very small bodies of water. I could see where, I don't know that I would still ban it. We're not banning it when we're running, events out there, but like, how do you justify that? I guess, why do you think that it's important, or, for somebody to be able to have 2D and down imaging, but not side imaging?
Well, 2D, and that allows you to see underneath you. That is it. So if you want to go out and you want to put in the time to find an offshore structure, say on a bigger body of water, you actually have to put in a lot of time to find that structure. You can't just idle around and see 150 yards on each side of your boat, or 150 feet, whichever one it is, 300 feet. I forget exactly.
Yeah. It's feet.
Yeah, you can't. You can only see under your boat. And the guys David Fritz was one of them that used to fish offshore. Now, that's one of the ones that pops up to mind there right off the top of my head. And you actually had to go out and you had to put in lots of hours of time. It just wasn't something like now anybody can go out with side imaging. You can find brush piles on a flat pretty simple. It don't take that long. You idle and you get it done. And another thing is when you see guys, say a lot of the professionals they talk about in practice, all they do is they just idle around all day. They don't even throw casts. They just idle around their side imaging and they mark all their GPS waypoints. That is just kind of it goes back to instincts as well. If you know what instincts actually means, and everybody watching, do you guys know what instincts actually are? Instincts means you are actually feeling what is there without seeing it. And when you start getting these electronics, that's like finding a brush pile. You could allow 3D or down scan and 2D sonar, but you have to idle around for hours to find that. You can't just idle over a point and see that within 10 minutes of idling that point and find it. You actually had to idle around, you had to know your figure eights, you had to know all kinds of stuff. And even before GPS, you actually had to know how to line up. I forget the exact terminology for it there, but you had to know how to line up everything.
What's the difference? In the, whether we have side imaging or whether we have down imaging, you're still going to have those same people out there idling, not making casts, trying to find the structure.
Yeah, the
process is still the same. They have to
put in more work to find that. You could get rid of it altogether. I personally, if I was going to do it, I would keep side imaging myself. I don't like it, but that would come to an agreement with both sides there. you could stop it at side imaging. It was kind of at a standstill, like you said, with side imaging, and 360 and front-facing sonar was about 10 or 15 years right there before they really came out with the next piece of technology.
Yeah. But yeah,
But
I guess
the guys that used to fish offshore, and even with side imaging, there still wasn't that many great offshore fishermen.
yeah.
There was Van Dam got really good at it. Edwin Evers got really good at it. But it wasn't like it is now. I mean, you go to a lake now and it's just everybody is offshore. I fished a local team tournament. I fished that lake for years, and I have never seen anybody on this flat. And went there in a tournament, and there was 7 boats on this flat fishing brush piles. I've never seen one in the 20 years I've been fishing there. Before the front-facing sonar, I had never seen a boat one out.
Okay.
And that is
so you think that the side imaging just decreasing the amount of work that the angler may have to do is a bad thing for the sport?
If you want to fish more, you need to put in the work to do so, and you need more skills with down imaging than you do side imaging. Side image you can actually still see fish on once you get good enough reading it. You can actually see the bass schooled up on it.
Yeah, I don't know if it takes more skill. I don't think I would agree that it would take more skill to idle over something, to just put my boat in gear and just look at my screen. My 7-year-old daughter, and maybe I'm proving your point, but my 7-year-old daughter likes to point out when she sees a fish on the screen. So I don't know that I would necessarily agree that it takes more skill. It does take more time. But if everybody is allowed to use the technology that will decrease that amount of time spent, then where is the advantage? And I guess you're not saying that, that level, but can you, if you can afford a down imaging unit, I mean, and maybe that's all you have, but that is maybe side imaging is something that you're gonna, try to work your way up to. You're gonna see people winning local tournaments off of 2D and down imaging, and maybe that's what they use their earnings for, is to upgrade to a side imaging unit, and then maybe from a side imaging unit they go to a forward facing sonar. But so I agree, they cost more money, but they cost the same amount of money for everybody.
Yes, that's where you're talking about the same amount of money for everybody. Not everybody is entitled to that money, and that's why a lot of these sports put those things in play. It's just like, not everybody goes out. I mean, everybody has incomes. You got, your lower income people, you got your middle income people, and you got your high income people. Not everybody can go out and afford 3 graphs, one side imaging for your left, one side imaging for your right, and then one 16-inch screen in the middle for your down imaging. I mean, you're talking on your graph. What are you talking? What's that? $4,000 or $5,000 a graph. You're looking at about $10,000 to $15,000 just on your console is what you're seeing. And some of these guys got 4 or 5 of them on the console there. Once you start getting up in there, that's not available to everybody, because not everybody can afford that. We got to start throwing in your classes of anglers for everybody. You got your poor, you got your middle class, and you got your rich. Should it just be entitled to the rich to have that advantage?
Well, I think the amount of money that you make that's up to you. I don't, there's nothing that anybody else does, that makes it to where you can't make the same amount of money that those guys can. I'm not, rich, right? I can't go out and spend that kind of money on electronics. But if I work hard and I sacrifice and I do the things, that I got to do, because if this is something that I want to be successful in, I'm going to make it happen. And I think that, you mentioned Brian Latimer earlier. He made a controversial statement about how average people have average results in life. And I think that is true. And I think that is something that you would agree with in most situations. Like, something that I thought about just over this past few days or so, thinking about leading up to this conversation was, a lot of guys have voiced their opinion about, like participation trophies, and how like we're in this society where everybody has to be treated fair and everybody has to be treated equal. And it's gotten to a point where it's almost ridiculous, where we're going so far out of our way to accommodate everybody just to make sure they feel good. But then when they get, when they're kids and we make them think that, there's just this happy little fairy tale where everybody's treated equally, and then they get spit out into the real world and they're just oblivious to what's really going on. I think that, you're not going to have the same amount of money as the next guy, and that's going to make you work even harder. And a lot of times that's going to make you more successful.
Yes, I completely agree with you there, but let's also look at some other professional sports. I see that touched on a lot, but I mean, let's look at other professional sports there. MLB, for example, you can't go out and take performance-enhancing drugs in any sport, even though you're available to it and you got more money than the other guy. You can't go take them drugs. That is illegal, because that gives you a higher, you are better, well, say MLB, for example, if you go out and shoot up on steroids, you're going to hit the ball further, which you still got to hit the ball, right? So why is it illegal? Because it's not available to everybody, and it takes away a natural ability and a natural skill. So you want to throw out the trophies there. Let's go back, and what I'm pointing at here is almost every professional organization or sport has rules that makes everything fair for everybody. And that is how it's always been. And don't go back to participation trophies. Don't point fingers at anybody with that. And don't point fingers at anybody in any class, whether they be wealthy, poor, or rich. You go to, we need to level everything and make it a level playing field for everybody and go off of skill, which bass fishing is about knowing what is under the water without seeing that. You go out and you throw a cast under the water and you got to know, is there a fish looking at my lure or is it not? That's called instincts. You shouldn't be able to see it on your front-facing sonar and say, okay, there's no fish there. You should feel that and be like, okay, there was a fish there and he just missed my jig, so I need to change colors up and I need to throw that jig back out there in another color. Or do I need to throw a worm? Do you look at it and not want it because of the jig? Or does he want the worm? Or does he want to say a swim bait? That is where instincts come in. You shouldn't be able to see it on your front-facing sonar and see that fish and be like, oh, okay, he reacted to that. Now I've seen that. So now I'm going to switch up after seeing the fish do it. You should have the instincts there to understand that that fish was there, that fish looked at it. Now I need to change up my lures. That is a natural ability that is being just completely gone with our technology, especially with the front-facing sonar and 360 paired together. That is just completely eliminating instincts. And that is a huge, huge thing in bass fishing. It used to be instincts. And instincts, and bass fishing too, is just, I mean, you look out, let's look out there in nature. You see, let's take a cougar or a bear, for example. Do they have infrared glasses? Can they just drop those infrared glasses over their head and look out through the woods and say, there's me a nice little deer prayed over there, and oh, she just had a baby. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to eat that. No, because they have instincts. They got to know where that's at. They got to feel that, and they got to go find that to survive in the wild. That's what we need to get back to. More natural instincts in the fishing world.
So when do we? This is a question for the guy that has a carbon 16 on the front of his boat with active target. When do we use that?
Yes. When do you use it? Okay, what do you mean with that?
Well, if we ban it from tournaments, when
you can use it recreational fishing anytime you want, or say even in practice, let them go out and practice and use it. Because if you go out and practice with it, I can tell you, low.
And then here's the other thing, like policing that. Policing that. If somebody really thought, if somebody was like, I'm gonna go win this event down in Southeast Kansas. They're fishing the strip pit, and they say no forward-facing sonar, but I got a way to sneak one on my boat. And they may check my boat, but I'll sneak one on there, and I'm gonna go graph them out. Like, how are they gonna police that?
How do they police? You go back to that. How do they police live bait? You don't know. Nobody can just go catch live bait and just go throw it out there and catch fish with it. That goes back to any rules that has ever been in place. And I mean, you lead me to that too. The Bassmaster Tour, and I think the Major League Fishing professionals. I don't think they're allowed to use the A rig, are they?
I don't.
Why is the Alabama?
Well, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think it's
why
silly.
Was it banned?
I think it should be allowed, but it's Yeah, it was because they thought that it was too easy to catch fish on them.
It's
I
too
mean,
easy. But literally seeing a fish on front facing sonar, and for the guys out there that's never actually got it done, if you're in winter months and you cast an Alabama rig or even a jerk bait, an Alabama rig is almost the best that is just completely a fish cannot ill resist. You throw it, you see one on your front facing sonar, and you throw an Alabama rig in 50-degree water, that fish is most likely going to smash it. That's pretty simple how easy that is. Like this year, I was just, because I'm testing it out, I was just out in the middle of the lake, out in a ditch on Stockton. I told my buddy, I said, we're going to go out here because I've heard a lot about this ditch fishing. And he looked at me like I was crazy, and we were just out in the middle of nowhere where nobody would have ever caught a fish before front facing sonar. And we just found a school of them and limited out in 5 minutes right there. And that's where it's eliminating a lot of skill. It's becoming, like I said, back to the instincts. And the biggest thing is price, because one of those, I got that one for $4,000. But if you were to go buy a 16-inch graph with front-facing sonar, you're the man behind that. What's that going to cost you right now? $6,000-$7,000?
it depends on what you get. I mean, you could get a 16-inch. Well, really, the cheapest way to go would be a carbon. If you can still find one. But like a live unit's going to cost you close to $5,000. And so yeah, probably probably $6,000 or so.
Yeah, around 6,000 with it all together there. And that's just, and then you pair that. I mean, if you want another graph for the side imaging to go with it on your console, you're looking at $12,000. I mean, I fish out of a boat that cost me, what was it, $5,500 when I bought it. So the graph's worth more than my boat.
Yeah. So okay, but you're saying we should go back to, right? And so I think it's hard to go back, right? So all these
that is what everybody's scared of. They're scared to go back because of what they're used to. And that's especially a lot of these younger anglers, you see the pushback from them because that is all they've ever known. And once you've known something, it is hard to get away from that.
And I think that, it would be, I don't know. I mean, I just don't know how. I mean, you can sit there and use 2D sonar just like you do your active target as long as you're directly below the boat. I mean, you can sit there and you can watch your jig and you can watch the fish bite it. I mean, so that's okay. It's not okay to do it. Yeah.
Well, you can see 100 foot out in front of you and it is in live, which I guess you could technically with a down imaging unit or a sonar, you could see it live, but you were looking directly below the boat. I mean, you can take, and especially you add 360 to your boat, you can see 360 around you. You can see your brush pile over here. You can see a school of bass over here. You can go there instantly with your front-facing sonar and pair that and see that.
All right. Sorry about that. Here, let's go check out the comments over here. We missed one from Cyber Yacker. So he looked online and it said they banned. Well, I don't know if it said they banned. He's not saying that, but he said the reason they don't allow live bait is because the fish bite and don't let go, sucking in the hooks, and then like getting gut hooked or something like that. So I could see that. My grandpa used to not let me fish worms
so from
on
a conservation.
Yeah.
So I see that. So on a conservation standpoint with live sonar, you can see the fish live and it's much easier to catch. What toll is that going to take on our fish in time to come? Let's say once most tournament anglers don't eat their fish. Let's say you get in the hands of the guys that eat their fish. What's going to happen to them as we get down the road here? We need to start looking down the road. If you want to talk from a conservation standpoint, it is actually not good at all on any fish.
CBG says the better bass fisherman will always rise. I do agree. What do you think about that?
Well, that is kind of true and kind of not. Are you if you take away the electronics, there's going to be some that probably will not rise. They will fall. The ones that solely rely on the electronics, I believe they will fall. You will have some if you got rid of them, but at least the front-facing sonar in the 360 that would fall. You would have some that would rise, and there would be some that would stay exactly the same. There are some that can do it all. But there is
I don't
some,
know.
especially I think a lot of the younger generation would fall because that is what they're used to.
Maybe, but it also took a lot of time and dedication and, to learn that technology. So, who's to say that they don't have the same sort of drive to learn how to maybe unlearn or, learn how to fish without it, right?
Oh,
I mean,
yes,
because
there is nothing saying. So who does it hurt? Well, that's a good question there. If we were to ban electronics, who does it hurt? The only person that it hurts is really nobody, and it just helps the lower class. That is the only person that it really, there's more favor for the lower class than there is for anybody. It's not going to hurt nobody. Even in the marine, say you're in the actual marine electronics industry, you could still use it in practice and say, still let them, you can still recreational fish. Nobody's taking that away from nobody. So it's not really going to hurt anybody there at all. It's going to more hurt rising everything and allowing it. It's going to hurt the lower class. Just like, I don't know if everybody watching this video is aware of Bassmaster today, but Bassmaster made it to where you have to fish all 9 opens to even qualify for the Elite Series. I don't know if you're aware, that's somewhere around, entry fees alone is $16,000 to do that, and then you talk expenses, you're looking around $30,000. That's minimum to fishing. You're talking a middle class man, the working angler is just completely driven out of that. Pretty much their only route to the Elite Series is through the Bassmaster Nation. That is it. And
okay,
that is,
so
it is all.
sorry.
Oh, yeah, that is all because of, and I was going to talk about this today during this video, is the cost of the electronics is bringing in a higher class of wealthy anglers, which there's nothing wrong with that. But the wealthy anglers are willing to pay more for everything, and they will not give no pushback to any rules that are made. And that is exactly what has happened. It's drove the boats up. It's drove the electronics, the price of those up. It's driving everything up, and now as well, it's driving entry fees up, and is driving the working man or the lower class anglers completely out of the sport because those higher income, they don't care. It's basically they can pay to play, and they call themselves a pro, and that is how it's going to be. And sadly, that is the route that is being taken, and that is proof through the Bassmaster Opens now that that is what is going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's harder to qualify, right? So it's more expensive to qualify.
It's not impossible, but it dropped it. I mean, you can still find some sponsors, but trying to find a sponsor at the open level, knowing from experience and talking to a lot of other professionals, that is very difficult to do at the open level. But once you get to the elite level, it's a little more easier because you have connections there, and you can do, people are going to start asking you to do seminars and do better with that. And you can promote easier at the elite level than you can at the opens because there's a lot more anglers at the opens. And there's so many people that approach those sponsors that ain't willing to get out there and do the work, and they've kind of burned them before in the past. So you got to do a lot more work to even get those sponsors, and there ain't many of them out there at the open level that will really help you out too well.
Yeah. But you did mention that you had put a deposit down for all of the opens last year?
Yeah, not all the open, just the division, the central division only.
Okay. But you consider yourself a lower class person?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
So how did you
I am a lower class.
How did you make that happen?
I did that because I have a home business, actually. So I raised dogs, and I set a lot of that money back for, 3 years, I think, to get that.
Right. So, I mean, I'm just saying, you're a lower income from what you're saying.
Yeah.
But you busted your butt, or, whatever you did. I can't imagine whatever you do just comes easy, raising dogs. I mean, it takes time. It takes money.
Well, I got a full-time job out there.
Right. But I'm saying, you had to go above and beyond. You had to make a sacrifice. You sacrificed probably fishing time to dedicate to raising these dogs or doing whatever you do. So
that is exactly.
So I mean, I get that it's kind of, but it's also something else that I read too here recently that I did want to mention. It was actually talking about skateboarding. Hey, can you give me my phone real quick? Hurry. Let me pull it up here. But I think that is true. I think that is true for fishing as well, especially tournament fishing. Um, Let me get it pulled up here. I saved it on my phone so I could go back to it. Okay, so it says the fact that skateboarding is really hard at the entry level is crucial to the nature of skate culture and the identity of skateboarders. It shapes every aspect of skating. It is an element that has existed since the skateboard was invented. It is the most important filtering mechanism in skateboarding. But it isn't a mechanism that filters for athletic ability. It filters for passion. So I think that fishing is the same way. So if
I'm gonna stop
somebody
you there.
knows,
Is there a skateboard that costs $7,000?
I don't know, but I'm sure there are entry fees that cost you a lot of money. And I mean, there are expensive parts of a skateboard for sure. But
Yes, but does it cost you? Are you looking at? I mean, on a boat, you look at some of these. I mean, if you're going to get spot lock, front facing sonar, and side imaging, 360 and side imaging, what are you looking at? $20,000 there with all of them?
you could spend that.
Now that's without the boat. That's without. You mentioned skateboarding, but you're talking about to have it and to learn it is so much cheaper.
Okay, but the
that
point,
is where
the point of that
argument there. There is no, and you don't got to pay $5,000 for an entry fee.
Do what?
I said you ain't got to pay $5,000 for an entry fee. There might be out there, but it's not.
Well, if you want to win big money, you do. But the point of it was, if you're truly passionate about something, you're going to find a way to make it happen. And if you're the type of person that says, and here's this part of the stance where, oh, well, we have to make it better for the working class person. I'm a working class person. Okay, that's me.
Yeah.
But I'm not afraid to do the work. So I know that if this is the way to get there, then I will have to find a route to make it happen. Right. And that's what I mean by that is, if you're a person who is just maybe going to get overwhelmed or, the fact that it's going to be really difficult or you're going to have to face these hurdles, if that deters you from competing, then you probably don't have the passion to begin with that it was going to take to be successful in this thing. It can't be something that just comes easy. You can't just show up one day and decide you're going to be a professional bass angler. I mean, that. But
yeah, do you know how many hours it takes to become a professional bass angler, not even without the electronics, though? And you're talking, let's take the working class angler to fish 9 events. You're going to have to basically quit your job because there is no job that gives you 9 weeks vacation. That's just it. You're going to have to quit your job. That's it. And say for me to fish that, I would have to save up for about 10 to 20 years. So I would have one shot at it. That's it. Good, done. That would be basically my life would be one shot at it. If you fish 9 events, if you have one bad day and something like that, it's over. You're done. Your whole season's done. Everything is over. Other than, I guess, you could win one event and go to the Bassmaster Classic. And let's go back to it once again. Professional sports is what people need to understand. Everybody keeps saying your drive and passion with that. But go back to any professional sport. And this does not exist hardly in any other sport. I mean, it's not the same way. Look at MLB, for example. Do they use metal bats?
But you're talking about something that no, but you're talking about something that
okay. Why do they take away the metal bats?
Well, you're talking about something that athletic ability, right? I mean, we're not having a casting.
Athletic ability is catching fish is instincts without seeing them on a graph. That is instinct. That is a natural ability of a bass fisherman. Well, let's go out in the wild. That is. You don't see a bear with infrared sunglasses. And you also, let's take hunting for
this isn't
if you
for
go out in the
survival.
woods and you put on infrared, if you put on infrared glasses and you go out to go hunting in the woods to kill animals, right? Say you go deer hunting and you kill that with infrared sunglasses, or it's not sunglasses, but infrared glasses. Are they going to allow that state record buck because you killed it? No, they're not. I mean, that's just it, because you didn't kill it in a natural way. But I mean, still, I don't know why they get rid of it, because you still got to sneak up on the animal. It's no different than front-facing sonar. You still got to sneak up on the animal, get there without it sensing your presence, and you still got to kill that animal. So, but once again, back to, you said, yes, you said skills and athleticism. That is part of it. Instincts is a massive part of fishing. That is your number one part in fishing, has been eliminated with front-facing sonar and electronics. That is knowing when, even say brush piles, because you got to know how to throw heavier weights. You got to know when you fill that brush pile. Then you got to be able to find that brush pile, and you got to keep casting to that brush pile. And that takes me back to spot lock. That has really taken away an angler skill that was boat control. That has really eliminated that. Spot lock has. The boat control has really gone away, and that's like everybody threw a fit about the floggers here. What was it, last year? They were really catching them on the floggers, and nobody'd really seen that because the spot lock hadn't really gotten too big yet. And then the spot lock really took off, and nobody's going to be able to lay over the side of the boat unless they threw an anchor out, which is how, in my opinion, how it should be. They should have to throw an anchor out. They shouldn't be able to hit the lock on their trolling motor and just go over and do that. The real skilled angler is going to be able to do it either laying over out there in 25-mile-an-hour winds, laying over there and doing it while drifting away, or taking the time to throw the anchor out and being stuck there. Then you got to throw the anchor out in the right direction so it actually anchors you there in the right spot. That is where all these things have been eliminated. And does it actually make them a better angler with the electronics, or does it not? Because you don't have boat control no more either. And I mean, a man that can keep throwing to a brush pile, at first you got to find it. Like I said, if you take the graphs away, even if you take down imaging and all of it away, you still got to find that. You actually got to go out and put the time in to find that offshore structure. And then, like I said, you ain't going to be able to see fish. You got to actually know they're there and know to make them bite the lure. But like I said, everybody's seen that in the comments, and about that is what has happened with the bring up of the electronics is causing it to get too expensive for just normal people to afford. It's become an elitist sport. Let's take NASCAR, for example. Do you know any NASCAR drivers? Or how do you get started in NASCAR? You're basically like born into NASCAR, and there's no other route into it. That's kind of where we're headed with bass fishing. If you want to be a professional angler, it's kind of, you're just going to be born in it, or you're going to have to be extremely rich to get into it.
Well, okay, let's talk about NASCAR. So over the years, has technology improved with the cars that they're driving? And do they allow that across the field?
They have limits on everything, though. I mean, you look at it, they have limits of horsepower. You can't go out and just make a 10,000 horsepower car all because somebody else can't do it. You got to make it a certain horsepower. You have, what else do they have in NASCAR? I'm not 100% familiar with it, but I know they limit everything they can do. So everything is on a level playing field. We're back to that again, a level playing field. Nobody has an advantage.
A level playing field, but you're talking about $1 million car.
Yeah, exactly. That's where bass fishing's headed. Do we want to push it that way, or do we want to stop it before it gets to that point?
I just don't know how you do it. And I don't know how.
It's simple. You take the front-facing sonar. If they have it on their boat, you say, well, you can't have your graph on your boat.
I think the only way to do it, is whatever series you're fishing has to provide the boat, and whatever it has on it, that's what you're allowed, and that's the level playing field.
Or yes, that would be amazing if they provided the boats, and then everybody would be on the same playing field there.
And then just like the MLS did at the beginning, where they had to ride their boats, they had their electronics, it was all, but at that point in time, what makes it any different? You're talking about way before you ever qualify for the elites. So I think what they do in the elites is almost irrelevant. But do you think that they should do you think that in the qualifying series they should ban certain electronics and then maybe still keep the high end, forward facing, whatever? Does that stay in the elites? And then now maybe we just worry about what's
Well,
used in the open.
yeah, kind of the way you're talking. Once they get to the elite level, let's maybe limit it at the qualifying levels. Then once you're to the elites, because everything's pretty much the same once you're at the elite level, because everybody's got the sponsors there, and it's pretty much a level playing field once you get to that point. But it's at the qualifying levels is where you see everything lopsided. It's up and down there. And I mean, it depends on where you go and how the scheduling is. I will give Bass lots of credit to their scheduling on their Elite Series. They are not terribly bad with scheduling around the front-facing sonar stuff. They schedule around everything to where shallow anglers can do good there as well. I'm trying to where all exactly they went this year, but I know a lot of their events are one shallow. They're not dominated by the offshore electronics.
Which we're at? Sorry, I missed that.
Okay, what did you miss there? Oh, Bassmaster. They schedule everything so every angler does not have an advantage there. Bass does a great job around on the Elite Series anyway. They schedule a lot of their events really around the spawn is how Bass really schedules everything.
What do you think about, the entertainment aspect? So organic
the entertainment aspect. I mean, to me, the entertainment, my favorite classic was I don't know if you remember the Three Rivers or not.
No.
Do you remember the Three Rivers in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania? It was 2005 Bassmaster Classic. Kevin Van Dam won it. Aaron Martins, I believe, got second or third. I know Iaconelli was up there in the top 5. And it was won on like 4 or 5 pounds a day, I do believe. And there was hardly any fish caught, and everybody said it was bass. Something about, I don't remember if it was the most watched classic or something, but a lot of people didn't like it because they wasn't just going out there and ripping lifts. But that comes down to, just instinct there. That's my kind of fishing, is when you got to go out and you got to grind to get one bite. That is, and that the technology, like there would have been technology then, they would have probably, I don't know how well they would have done then, but it would have been a whole different story.
Maybe so. Yeah. But so I guess
that's what I want to watch.
The what?
Oh, so that's what I want to watch. For me, I want to watch an angler actually go out and try to figure it out. But like I said, it seems to be a big craze with the new technology. Everybody seems to be wanting that until they get maybe watching it, but not really on the tournament scene. A lot of guys. And then I see a lot of people, they say, oh, it's because you just can't win with it and you're just mad about it. But maybe somebody are, but some of the anglers are mad about it and they're just mad because they can't win with it. But that's not my case. I mean, I haven't really had time to even learn it that well. That's the biggest thing there. But I'm speaking for a lot of the anglers, like I said, that can't really afford it. Like myself, that's all I have is the 16. I don't even have. What do I have? I have a HDS 7 harp. That is my side imaging unit. So I got to upgrade that.
But what about appealing to the masses, right? So we're trying to grow the sport. The sport can't grow unless the viewership grows. So I think that is something that, maybe the leadership at Bass and MLF are taking into consideration.
Maybe they are, but maybe they need to. We really need like an anglers union, like MLB has. That's really kind of basketball, NBA has unions. We need like anglers unions, because really the anglers are the ones that run everything. Without the anglers, they wouldn't have nothing. But it seems like the organizations nowadays don't really want to listen to their anglers. They want to go opposite directions, kind of what Bass did with the Fish 9 and Qualify, which Bass has had a very big history from watching a lot of podcasts through the years. I won't say no names of some anglers that Bass has had a bad history of not listening to their anglers. So that's the problem, is our anglers need to stand up there. because who it's hurting the most is the lower income anglers. It's really kind of just putting them out of it. Like I said, I've seen this fish in the BFLs. You used to see some older boats in there, and this year there was about 70% of them were probably $60,000 or $70,000 rigs, every one of them. They all were just decked out with electronics, and it's just really, that's at a BFL level. And then, like I said, once you get to the Bassmaster Opens, it's just insane all. And once you have more technology than the other guy, you have a lot more of an advantage.
But you would be okay with your guys in your club using live scope and whatnot to go pre-fish with. That would be okay.
Yes. If they wanted to go out with it, they could go right ahead. Because that does not really give them an advantage when it comes down to it. That might actually hurt them more than help them once it comes down to it, because they actually rely on that. Other than marking everything, that would be the only thing, marking the brush. Yeah, that would be marking the
waypoints you've got. In the scenario where you don't have forward-facing sonar, the more waypoints you have on your chart screen, the more advantage you would have, in theory.
Yes, that is true. But you still gotta, be able to get back to those without that technology to get to it.
So really,
that would come down to skill.
Kind of takes you back to, I don't know, maybe takes you back to 95 or something.
Yeah, well, that's what we need to get back to, is back to 95. That's when anglers actually had the instincts and actually understood how to fish. We need to get back to that. That is what we need to see more of, in my opinion. Fishing, like I said, and anything in the wild is just instinct. That is what we're doing here. It is man versus fish, but it's turned out more like electronics versus the fish. We're trying to prove who is the best bass fisherman, not the best electronics reader.
Yeah. Shad, polarized glasses. I mean, I get that, but where do you draw the line? Like, where do you say that, this advantage is okay for everybody to have and this one isn't? I mean, I can't imagine you want to ban polarized sunglasses.
No, there would be polarized sunglasses affordable to everybody. You can go buy a pair of polarized sunglasses for $20.
Not everything made illegal in every other pro sport is equal to forward-facing sonar. Yeah, I mean, I think some of your comparisons, I can.
I would say front-facing sonar is very comparable to a batter knowing what pitch is coming, because he still don't know how fast it's going to come at him, and he don't know where it's going to be thrown. He's still got to hit the ball. Or even if they tell him it's going to be outside corner, that don't mean it's still going to go there. He's still got to be able to hit that ball no matter what. That's the argument I see with the front-facing sonar. And that is no difference than a batter, but they hide that batter. Like I said, the Houston Astros told their batters what was coming, and they did better than the other team because they knew if it was an off-speed pitch or a non-off-speed pitch. That's all they knew. I don't know if you're aware of that, how they cheated exactly, the Houston Astros. But it was they only knew an off-speed pitch or a non-off-speed pitch, and they did so much better because they knew one or the other. And that is just the difference that makes. That's just like seeing the fish helps you catch it a lot more than not seeing the fish.
It does. It absolutely does. Power poles, anchors, high-dollar fishing reels, rods. So you would probably be an advocate for getting rid of the power pole.
Power poles are very expensive, but they don't really help you too much, I wouldn't think. Now, spot lock, I would be big on getting rid of it because it is not, it is very expensive.
When was the last time someone won an open bass event in a boat that cost less than $30,000? Probably been a while.
That's a good question. That is a very good question. So that would go back to being an elitist sport. To me, the price of the boat don't help you catch the fish, but
I think though, as long as I can kind of see where you're coming from. I'd rather use the electronics. Obviously I want all the information I can get. I don't have a huge opportunity to fish. I'm lucky to fish like once a week. I'm super happy if I get a fish twice in the same week. Like, that never happens for me. So, when I get out there, I want all the information I can get. And I think the only way that it would ever make sense for a club like ours or yours, um, to, especially a club that's qualifying an angler for, an event at the national level, where these things are definitely going to be leaned on a lot more. I think it's almost hurting the angler more by not allowing them to use that stuff, because once they get to that national level, they're not going to be prepared because they've been told they can't use it. What do
Yes,
you
well,
think about that?
well, I mean, that's once again, you got to learn how to use that, and then you got to learn how to go without it. And I think a lot of the young anglers would be lost if they had to go without using it.
But being that, okay, but just I get that you would like to see it go in that direction, but we're facing the reality that it hasn't gone that direction, yet. So, for the people that maybe agree with you, you guys can get together. There's tons of you guys out there, right? I mean, there's tons of
Yeah,
people that have the same viewpoints as you. So, I mean, maybe you guys can come up with this angler union. But for now, you know, when you qualify somebody to go fish the Bass Nation Team Series and they have not been allowed to use forward-facing sonar or side imaging, maybe because the fact that they weren't allowed to use it, they never purchased it. So now, they qualified for that, and then now it's their time to go represent the state. And we want to see them represent the state by finishing well, right? But they don't finish
yes.
well because we kind of are in agreement, I think, that some of these higher level events, it's almost necessary to have. So
Oh,
are
yes,
we
I
actually?
totally agree with you there. As long as it's legal, we need to send guys from the, say, if you're at the Bass Nation level, yes, if they're not trained on that, then sorry, I got to get my phone charger here. Yeah, if you're not trained on that, you're not going to go very far. So, yes, I completely agree with you on that at the nation level. If we're going to send guys from a state level, we need to send guys that are trained with it.
Yeah, and
If
you
you don't know how to
hear
use it, you're
guys.
going to get.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
your chances are better, and if you have it right, or if you know how to use it. But
Yes.
the thing that I would compare it to is, you hear guys at the state level complain about going and fishing Kansas Bass Nation qualifiers, or the whatever series it is, right? But it's kind of at a state level, and they complain about having to go fish Missouri lakes, or Oklahoma lakes. Well, that's not Kansas. Well, the reality of the situation is, if you learn how to fish Kansas lakes and you just have this whole Kansas lakes thing down and you go fish the Ozarks, you're going to be totally lost. So it's almost better that you have that practice outside of the state, and that you know, practice in other conditions, that you're going to
Yes,
face
I
at.
think a lot of that, you mentioned that this year with the Bass Nation in Kansas, a lot of them threw a fit about fishing Missouri. And you just made a good point about that. You got to be ready, because really Kansas lakes don't really fish like, well, anything around our central region here. Once you get outside of Kansas, there ain't really much like anything else. Because everything else, you get to Oklahoma, it fishes a lot like the Ozark lakes. And then Kansas, I haven't really been anywhere that Kansas really fishes like myself. But
It's kind of its own thing.
yeah, maybe down in Alabama still. I've only been to Pickwick down there in Wilson, so and it's more like Ozark fishing there.
Yeah. Let's see here. I feel like someone could be at the elite level and still not be accepted by other anglers. I'm not sure. Sorry, some of these comments we're getting to way after, so I'm not even really sure what that one is about. But um, I'm not sure. People have been ledge fishing for years before forward-facing sonar. That's true.
Yes,
Um,
yes, they were fishing ledges way before the front facing sonar. And that's like I said, even when you look at the local BFLs this year, and since front facing sonar has really taken off in your local team tournaments, I don't know if you paid much attention to what's going on in the actual bass or the bass boat scene of things away from the kayak side. The weights have just really jumped up, and the BFL is about 2 to 3 pounds or so. Except there's only one exception was the BFL on Table Rock in the water. It came up 12 foot in I think 2 days, and the fish were on beds, and that one still only took I think 5 pounds for a check on the boater side this year. But outside of that, anytime those fish were actually positioned on something, the weights have just used to be, even the winter time, but really used to be a tough time of year until the front facing sonar. Well, first it was the A-rig, and then the A-rig kind of made that simpler, and then when you pair the A-rig with the front facing sonar, it's just kind of really made the wintertime fishing much simpler.
What do you have to say for the guys that might think that your stance is a my way or the highway?
I don't think it's that way. I think we need to find somewhere and meet in the middle. That's how I feel about that.
Okay. And you did mention you would, if somehow it came down to you making this decision with Bass or MLF, you would be willing to make a compromise somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, like keep the side imaging because it was around for years, and you really didn't see no dominance with the side imaging. KVD did do good, but he didn't dominate. Kind of like Jason Wheeler, since the front-facing sonar has really taken off, he has just dominated. He's one of the ones that is dominating with it. Then there's another, which one is it? Is it one of the two brothers in Bassmaster? One of the two Canadian brothers. Is he one of the ones that is kind of dominating with it on the Elite Tour?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, but I just drew a blank.
Yeah.
What about okay? So let's bring this back to the kayak thing. My battery is about to die, so we'll probably have to cut it.
Okay, mine was going there. I got it plugged in, but.
But as far as in the kayak world, you have mentioned that it being more of a grassroots thing. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my thoughts on the kayak side of things is because I seen when it first took off, the kayak scene. And I kind of thought, and it was advertising, it's more grassroots. And that's kind of, I would feel no electronics in that would be the way to go. Because that is, and even trolling motors, you could say for safety reasons and people getting back, you could probably allow that. But really a paddle, I mean, that's kind of grassroots. But allow a trolling motor, even though I have seen, you're more in the kayak scene. I know Grand Lake was one with autopilot, and there was another one they said was solely on autopilot, helped them win it. The autopilot trolling motor.
The Grand Lake one was, dude didn't even use a fish finder. He was in a paddle kayak.
Oh, okay. Well, I read one of them was something in autopilot. He credited autopilot trolling motor helping him.
There's more of that on the kayak scene. Now, a lot of our guys aren't using it to their full potential. A lot of the guys we have on this show and talk about, how they did, how they won and stuff. And you'll ask them how electronics played a part of that. And most of them will tell you they're using it for depth and temperature, or maybe they're using their chart screen. So I think that, we haven't really.
It's not really playing a big scene in it, which it's kind of hard to run front facing sonar on a kayak. It ain't real simple.
Well, when you got spot lock, it's pretty easy.
Well, yeah, I guess when you spot lock, it gets a little easier. I need spot lock on my boat. That's which I need the new Hummingbird. That's the yeah. I don't have spot lock. That's another big thing that I need. And the new Hummingbird.
The target lock is what they call it. Shad says lower income everything has less opportunity in everything. That's life, unfortunately. Same applies to every sport. So that kind of goes back to my skateboarding analogy. I kind of agree with that. I get where you're coming from, and I get that if your stance is, you're like a purist. I get that.
Yeah.
But I think if you're coming from a stance where you're trying to like stand up for the lower class, to me it sounds more like a crutch. It sounds more like, and I don't think people need that. I don't think the people that are actually going to have the determination and have, what it takes, I don't think they need that crutch. Like they're going to find a way to do it no matter what.
Yeah, well, it's getting, like I said, it's getting too far, and that's the way we're going is it's becoming the elitist sport. Because once it gets too far, look at NASCAR. A poor man making it in NASCAR is like, what, 1%? I don't know the exact in that, but that goes back to, he said there's it's harder for lower income people to make it any sport. That is really not true, because if you look at it, everybody has the same opportunity to get there. I mean, you work your way up through baseball. It doesn't really take money to work your way up through baseball. If you have the talent in baseball, you're going to get noticed.
Not true.
I mean, if you're in high school, they provide you everything to get there. Same way with football, they provide your pads, they provide you everything. The same way with basketball.
You are correct, but there are definitely parents who have money that put their kids in travel ball and spend thousands and tens of thousands of dollars every single year, so their kid has more training, has more experience. I mean, there are a lot of people that dump a lot of money into kids sports.
Yeah, that is true. But that doesn't take it. That's once you get to like the high school level, you are noticed by scouts. That is, I guess you could pay scouts to come help you too, but there's no way of paying your way into that, if that makes any sense. You can't just go out and pay your way into a college. I guess you can pay your way into a college and they can walk on, but still, you can't go up to a major league team or a AAA team and say, here's $10,000. I'm going to play for you.
Well, you can't do that in fishing either.
That is what it's getting into now. Basically, what was there? 82 anglers that fished all 9 events. So if you look at that, that's a very good odds of making it if you have the money to get there, which now, if you fish all 9 events, like I said, that's $16,000. You're basically saying you're paying to play. There's not too many. I mean, there's maybe 1% of a working class that can afford the $30,000 to go do so. You're not going to find any working class man that can do that ain't got his own job, that doesn't have his own home business somewhere. And that's all because somebody has the skill to do that. That's what we need to get to. There might be your best angler out there that just does not have that income. Let's say he messed up when he was younger and he had 3 kids. And then he realized, it's too late, but now I can't go out and make that money because I have those 3 kids, but he has the talent to make it. Should it be based on that money to get him there? Or should it be based on his talents? I mean, it was already hard enough to go do 3 of them.
I don't think – here's the thing. Like, I don't think that a guy that's going to decide not to even attempt to make a run at his dreams is ever going to be successful, in anything, right? I mean, like, if you're too afraid to make the sacrifices, like, you had to make sacrifices to put those deposits down. You had to. Yeah. You had the drive to do that. You decided that was something you wanted to do, and you didn't use the fact that you're not, rich as an excuse. You made it happen. And I think that, the people that are going to be successful are going to have that kind of drive. The people that use it as an excuse, those people were never going to be good anyways.
I guess you are right on that. There is a lot of them that are that way, and then there's maybe I look at it a different way because I have that drive. Maybe that's.
Yeah, I mean, it goes a long way, and you're right. It doesn't catch fish, the drive doesn't catch fish, but just it does. It makes a huge difference. So I think
you go back to that. I made the sacrifices to buy the front-facing sonar, and that is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, right, exactly. Not only do the
I really don't think it's going to be banned, but it may. Who knows? I don't know. I know Marty Stone has made some comments about how he does not like it. I have seen that on social media. I haven't seen that myself, but I have seen that on social media.
Yeah, I totally get it. I think that if you wanted to test the true skill, I don't know if skill is the right word, but like instincts, you keep mentioning instincts. I think instincts are maybe less important than they were, but they still play a part, even if you have forward-facing sonar. I mean, absolutely,
they still are there, because you have to know if you go there and the fish ain't there, you still got to know where to go to catch them. That is instinct.
Yeah, or know where to even look. So instincts are playing more of more of a part in practice. And then, if they're not where you thought they would be, then yeah, I mean, your instincts are going to have to kick in, or you're not going to find the fish. But I mean, I could agree that, that would be the way to test an angler's true instinct. And I think it would be really cool to see an event, especially at the elite level, where they didn't use any electronics. Like, that would be really cool.
I have thought about it would be cool to see, let's say, half the events with it and half the events without it, or something like that. Or maybe even like them start a tour that was a no electronics tour or a limited electronics tour or something like that.
And maybe someone will, or maybe you're going to be the one behind making it happen. I think people would watch it. I think people would be interested in it. I think there's probably a market for it. So that would be cool to see.
It seems to be about half and half on the electronics and no electronics. That's kind of what I see there. And there's been a more following for the non-electronics now. I've kind of noticed there has been a stronger following for the non-electronics ever since the front-facing sonar kind of came out, and more people are kind of pushing towards because it used to be a very heavy favoring of the electronics, and now it's kind of going the other way a little bit there. It's kind of meeting in the middle.
And maybe at some point there's a cap, has to be put on it. Because it's, Garmin just put out information on their LVS 62, which is a saltwater, transducer, but it's a live scope transducer that can see out 500 feet.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Wow.
So,
and that takes you back to, you mentioned that, is underwater cameras, are they illegal? Because I have heard they are, and I've tried to look it up, and I've heard they are.
I don't know. I think that, I'm not sure. I don't know.
That's the thing. It's kind of, and it's like, what point does it stop at? At what point do you draw a line there?
Yeah. He's saying time on the water does catch fish, and that's why they go broke.
That is 100% the biggest thing, is time on the water. If you can grow up fishing and you're out on the water every day, that is how you learn. And the more situations you put yourself in, and the more weathers or different weather conditions, fronts and all that, how the fish react. The more conditions you get yourself in, the more lakes you fish, the more bodies of water you fish, you're going to know so much more. And then you got to be able to store all that and know when to pull that back out from another time as well.
Yeah. So I think that I definitely don't want to see my electronics go anywhere in kayak fishing, and I could understand why maybe you thought that kayak fishing is, at the grassroots level, and I think that it is, but I think the sport of kayak fishing is growing, and I think that we want to continue to see it grow. And I think that allowing our anglers to use electronics, even at the smaller scale level that we fish at here locally, I think that it also gives them an opportunity to prepare for, if they want to go out and represent the club.
That is one way I did not look at it. That is a great example there. That is, because if you send them out there and they get to the national level where they are using all that, then they're going to not know what to do. And if they go to a lake that is, mainly a lot of those places is spotted bass lakes, or when offshore lakes that they move offshore, then that is where it really comes into play. And they would kind of be lost if they didn't have their electronics there. Like I said, you can still get it done shallow, though, because John Cox, he's a prime example of that.
Yeah, Jacob's saying that learning what to use, I wouldn't consider instincts either. I think people get confused. It's something you learn from others or videos experience. I think that learning what to use is absolutely instincts, but it's something that you have learned over time, and it's been trial and error, and okay, they're not biting this, so let's try this. I mean, you can learn it from videos, but oh shoot, my battery's running low. But I think that it definitely is instincts, but it's something that for the most part you have to learn on your own. You can watch a video and try that, but it may not work for you because
you have your confidence baits, and that's where somebody can
give me 1 second. You can continue to talk or answer questions. I'll be right back.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's just like I said. That's fishing one lure. You get your confidence lure, and somebody will be. They can always catch them on one lure. And then you'll be in the same boat with them, and they'll be just tearing them up on that lure. You'll grab that same lure they're throwing, and then you'll go out and throw that lure yourself at the same time they're catching fish on it, and you just can't catch fish on it. A lot of it is confidence. I don't know what that is, but sometimes when you have confidence in that one bait, you can catch fish better than somebody else on that lure. That confidence bait for me would be a Texas rig. That's just kind of what I grew up fishing, and that is what I reach for in tough conditions is a Texas rig. Well, if I'm here in Kansas or this area, a shaky head is really good. So anything worm fishing, but that all goes back to that it is kind of instincts, but it's like I said, like Juan was saying, is trial and error. You got to know what condition to throw that in or when to pick up that certain lure. And a lot of that goes back to the trial and error, and then you got to be able to pull back into your memory bank and pull that out of there. So to be a great bass angler, you have to be able to store all that and then pull that out 10 years down the road and be like, oh, I remember this one time, and it was a situation just like this. Let me try that.
Yeah. Yeah, and learning from other people's videos and stuff. I think that, anybody can do that, on their own time if they want to try to learn, but it's much better to learn from I think somebody said earlier on, time on the water.
Yeah, time on the water is the most important thing. It don't matter what you're doing, whether it be electronics or non-electronics. If you're not on the water, you're not going to do much at all. You got to spend. That is, like I said, if you can go out every day, that's where that any advice for any younger kids wanting to get into it is find yourself something. Really try to be a guide. That would be the best way to do it. And then you could go out and kind of get paid to do that, and you could be on the water or move somewhere on the water.
Yeah, for sure. And doing things like that, those are sacrifices that people make in order to put themselves in a situation where they can compete at a higher level.
Yeah, that just what really scares me is it's just like seeing that today is the 9 events that's kind of really putting it out of reach there. That's making a huge sacrifice. I don't know what plans they have with that exactly, but we will see exactly where they're going with that. Hopefully it's not too terrible, which I guess you still have Major League Fishing. You still got the Toyota Series to qualify for their, I don't know exactly what they call it. They're the old FLW Tour is what I still call it.
I don't know. Jacob's given us definitions of things. Instincts, a natural or intuitive way of acting or thinking. Yeah, I think it becomes natural. I think it becomes instinct when you've done it so many times. It's like muscle memory almost to a certain extent, to where, when you have a certain situation happen on the water and you need to trigger those fish because of the conditions or whatever, it's an instinct to kind of go for things that have worked in the past. It becomes natural because you've done it so much.
Yes, yeah, I would agree with you on that.
And then he's given us some more here. Knowledge, information, and skills acquired by a person through experience or education, theoretical or practical understanding of the subject. I'm not sure. But the one important thing that, if you guys are still watching, the one important thing that I would really like to take away from tonight is that, we can have differing opinions and we can talk about that in a civil manner. And I would like to encourage that. I would like to encourage, people to, especially people with very like-minded interest, people that could be working together to make things better. Like it's very important that we're not, splitting ourselves like, oh, well, I'm an electronics guy and you're not. So, forget you and I don't like you and you're stupid. Like it's important that we're
I've seen that a lot too. And we all need to get along. We all still are fishermen at the end of the day. We all like to do the same thing.
And I think that we could, be a resource for each other. I think that we could, for somebody who maybe doesn't, for somebody who maybe does have that mindset, like, oh man, like I don't even know if I want to compete because I don't have this technology or whatever. But maybe they meet somebody in their local club and they form a friendship, and they're maybe co-angling for them, and through that friendship they learn how to use this technology. As long as it's not banned, it's something that they really need to learn. So even though they don't have it, maybe they'll have an opportunity to learn it. But or maybe it does get banned, and I need to lean on you a little bit because you have these more of these instincts that I don't have, and I'm just stuck on looking at my screen all the time. But
Yes, that is. We need to learn from each other too, because that's somebody. Well, because they're better at you at something, don't mean you can't learn from them. That is usually how somebody learned to get better, was they went and found somebody to teach them, or they
yeah,
went out and did it themselves.
yeah. If you're ever trying to get good at something, find somebody who's better than you and hang around. But
Yeah, that's
yeah, some
cool to learn something. I remember that growing up too. If somebody's better at you something, watch them, and that's take a man you hate the most. And usually somebody don't like somebody. I've noticed that, that's common in kids growing up, and even with adults, they don't like somebody because they're better than them at that. And that's
yeah.
I become
Jealousy is a real thing, and so I want to see everybody succeed. I want to see everybody do well. I want to see people that want to compete, without electronics, have the opportunity to do so, right? And that's what you're giving them down there in Southeast Kansas. So uh, I haven't made it down there. I planned on it, and that fell through the one time I planned on going down, and I haven't hardly had a chance to breathe since then. But maybe one of these times I'll make it down there. But uh, I think it's cool that that is an option, and I would really almost like to see how things shake out if the kayak guys did one tournament. I'm not saying run the whole series, and I'm not even saying allow AOY points. I'm just saying a fun tournament. I would love to see how many guys would be interested in competing in it, and I would love to see like who wins it, right, with no electronics. So if you guys are interested in seeing something like that, shoot me a comment, shoot me a message. I don't think the idea of banning some of these electronics or you know is necessarily a bad thing. I don't think it's coming from a bad place. I think the way you've articulated yourself with instincts and stuff like that, it's not just a, well, I don't have any money, so I don't think anybody else should have it. I haven't got that vibe.
Yes, yeah, it's not quite that. I guess some people push that vibe, but it's just, is it the scare there is it going to get too expensive? That's the scare.
Yeah. Well, it's not
And
getting any cheaper. Absolutely.
yes, and then that's kind of, it's like what point? Because all the other fish finders, now you can go out and get a down imaging unit for $150. So is that what they run about that? 150, $250, you can get a down imaging unit.
Well, you'd
I don't
have
know.
to get a pretty cheap one, but I mean,
Okay, so they're probably what, $500 right in there. They're not too expensive now, but
but you could buy, I mean, to be completely fair, you could go buy a Helix 15 mega down imaging unit that runs you, uh, or no, not a 15, because they don't make a DI only in 15. It'd have to be a 12. So it would be a $2,000 unit. So I mean, that's on the very, very high end. So I'm just kind of for argument's sake, but
high end is 2,000, and they used to be, yeah, lots of money. So they used to be up there, but I don't know if the front facing sonar stuff is ever going to come down though. And that's the problem that I forgot to talk about there too, is the lower class angler, once he finally gets a hold of that technology, and once he spends his time out there and he gets that mastered, then it just seems like the next piece is out there. It's
yeah,
maybe there'll be another 10-year span before the next thing. But right now with the electronics craze, it's like every year they're coming out with something new, and it's like, the working man just seems to always be. But I guess that goes back to what you're saying, is whoever wants it the most is going to go get that. They're going to find a way and make a sacrifice and make that happen.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so for everybody, that was commenting over on Facebook. For some reason, some of the Facebook comments weren't coming over. I did a test comment and it came over, so I'm not sure why mine came over, but a lot of these other ones didn't. So hopefully, a lot of your guys' questions were answered. Hopefully, you guys, I don't know, maybe feel like some of the issues between the electronics guys and the non-electronics guys maybe are resolved. I think we have kind of came to almost an understanding here. So it helps to understand you and for you to understand where I'm coming from, and for us to just be able to articulate that. I think that kind of goes a long way. It doesn't change anything, and in our conversation wasn't going to.
Well, we're two nobodies really, so it ain't going to. Who knows? It may. That's where we need everybody to really. That's what I encourage is to everybody. If you want to try and change it, we need everybody to kind of speak up about that. But like you said, everybody needs to do it in a civil manner and not just get into a yelling match and say I hate you because you don't want it that way. Because in the end, we're all fishermen. But that's how. If we want any organizations to change something, everybody. That's just anything throughout history has been changed from anybody speaking up. And usually if one person speaks out against the majority, and stands up for a minority, then they are kind of labeled a bad guy or not liked. That's just, anything throughout history has been that way. But that's kind of, I feel I kind of have taken my way to be a spokesman for that. I don't know if it'll ever change anything, but that's, when you could try to persuade somebody the other way, and I see it both ways, and it's good for the industry in a way, and then it's kind of, like I said, with the biggest worry there is it driving it too expensive. That's
yeah, I could see that. I don't know, but I'm thinking about maybe doing a no electronics tournament now. So you might have to come fish.
That would be pretty sweet. We might do one and allow those, but yeah, I am looking at getting into a kayak here. So
what are you looking at?
Well, I don't know. I think I'm going to get a little small one. My cousin's got a little one. He's going to let me kind of borrow. It's just a little bitty old one. I don't know what it is. And then I went to Bud Bait. I can't tell you all the name of them last week, and over here in Joplin, and they had a tryout kayaks, and I kind of went around in them, and they were pretty sweet. I couldn't believe how stable they was. So you can stand up in them, you can rock in them. And one of the guys there, he kind of showed me. He even jumped out of it and tried to roll it over, and it's like almost impossible to flip it and roll one over.
Yeah.
No, there's the one showing me. They were pretty nice.
Heck yeah. All right, man. Well, anything else that you want to mention before we go?
I believe that's everything. I think we talked about and hit all the points I wanted to talk about. I don't think I missed anything in there.
Cool. All right, man. Well, appreciate you coming on again, and looking forward to, I don't know, seeing the way things go. I don't know that they're gonna ban electronics tomorrow or not, but I think
I don't think if it ever happens, it's gonna, and I don't think if it ever does happen, they're gonna ban all electronics. I don't think that would happen there. But who knows? That there might be a non-electronic tour come out and one with them, or they might split a couple of them, or they might try a couple without them. Who knows?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. But yeah, man. Well, thanks for coming on, and
thanks for having me again. I appreciate it. It was, I lost him there. Let's see if he comes back on there. Well, it don't look like John will be coming back on there, so I will, if he don't come back on while I'm talking here, I will end it for him since he was getting off there. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. It was a nice conversation me and John had. It was a nice debate there. We both left with a little better understanding of how each other feels and a little understanding of why they're allowed and why they're not allowed, at least at the state level, because neither one of us really knows anything else at the national level, but with the Bassmaster and all them. But I will go ahead and get off there, and I appreciate all you guys coming. Thank you.
All right, guys, I'm back here. Sorry about that. Apparently, I didn't plug my charger in all the way to my computer, so it wasn't actually charging. But anyways, I do want to thank Levi for coming on tonight. I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in. I just think it was important that we had a civil conversation, about the two different viewpoints. And, this wasn't necessarily to convince you to think one way or the other, but I think that he made some good points. I think that, he admitted that I made some good points. So I think that, at the end of the day, his suggestions are coming from a good place, and that's really what matters. And I think that the next time you guys are on social media and somebody posts something that you don't agree with, try to really understand where they're coming from, because I think at the end of the day, we're all a lot more like each other than we think. So, and he mentioned something like that earlier, and that might have been before we were recording, but he did say something similar to that, and I can definitely agree with that. So, guys, I'm definitely for the electronics. I love using them when I'm out on the water. I love when I can get just a little piece of information that's going to help me catch another fish, because I don't get to spend nearly as much time on the water as I would like. And I'm definitely going to continue to use them. And I think as long as they are allowed to be used at the higher levels, the regional, the national, the elite levels, I think that you should probably figure out how to use them as well, because you're going to have to compete against people that, are very familiar with them and can definitely catch fish with them. So I think that for now, it's something that, you should definitely take advantage of. And I want to thank Levi for coming on the show. If you guys are interested in fishing some of his events down in Southeast Kansas, you can find his group on Facebook, and that is the Columbus Bass Club. So they are out of the Columbus area there in Southeast Kansas. So guys, if you're into kayak fishing, definitely check out the Kansas Kayak Anglers. We've got a couple tournaments left this year, and looking forward to ending things with a bang. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in. If you're not subscribed, hit the button. Appreciate it. See you on the next one.